I think everything, first of all, has to start from an awareness and then an understanding before we can make any change. I think because I come very much from the standpoint of the body and how the body works, the perfect, absolutely perfect thing that you could do is to say a prayer. We're enabling the person to heal themselves and find their inner strength, their inner courage, power to be able to recover from something. And they don't need the tablets anymore.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you and your listeners.
Happy to have you here. Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. Now, as an expert in osteopathy and a transformative healer, I have to ask you, what does peak performance mean to you?
To me, peak performance would mean that you are performing at your optimum, your best, but within 4 quadrants. So I would say peak performance within spirituality, within physical health, mental health, and emotional well-being as well. So I'd say peak performance is about all 4 of those areas that we live our life in and being at your peak within each one of those.
I don't know about others, but I have difficulty hitting peak performance in one of those areas. So how does a listener listening to this achieve peak performance in all these 4 quadrants? What's the beginning steps towards that?
The beginning steps, I think, would be just by going within. I think if we are, first of all, aware of our body and our mind and spirit, I think everything, first of all, has to start from an awareness and then an understanding before we can make any change. I think because I come very much from the standpoint of the body and how the body works, I think the first place to start is if you have any symptoms in your body, then it's about looking at those symptoms and wondering possibly what does that mean? What might be wrong with myself? Why aren't I being able to perform? And then trying to establish why have I got that problem so that I can make a correction. It's a bit like the amber light on the dashboard of your car. If your amber light comes on, there's something wrong with the engine. So you're going to go and take it to a mechanic to find out what's wrong and fix it. And I think people ought to be doing that with their bodies as well. So if there's any symptom whatsoever, if that's brain fog or a pain in the knee, pain in the foot, some form of headache, or maybe a depression, then these are symptoms of dysfunction. And you can't be performing at your best if there is something that you're feeling inside that's not functioning properly.
On a day-to-day basis, I know everybody feels some symptoms, whether we are tired or exhausted or brain fog, leading up to physical symptoms, some less severe, some very severe. Most of us just then take a pill that the doctor prescribed us and we feel good. Is that not the best way to go about it?
No, I would say not. No, because usually if you take a pill, you're putting a plaster on something. So there are side effects as well, usually from taking a drug. I don't think there are many drugs that you could take and then feel great from it and not suffer the side effects as well. So whenever you take a drug, you have to be very aware of what are the side effects. What might I need to take as well for the side effects? Because usually one drug then leads to another drug. So I would say, no, it's not a good idea to put a plaster on anything. You want to evaluate why is that there in the first place. So if you've got a headache, it would be better, first of all, to ask, are you dehydrated? Do you actually just need to drink some water? Or do you need to go outside and get some fresh air? Do you need to maybe get away from your Wi-Fi? But try and look at maybe why you're having the symptom before going straight to the tablet. It's about creating responsibility. So you become responsible for how you're feeling and then taking action to try to correct whatever it is that's going on inside your body or your mind.
For those listening in who don't know what osteopathy is, can you first tell us what that is and then share your journey that led to osteopathy, then helped you dedicate your entire life to transformative healing?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Osteopathy has been around since 1874. It's a very long time. It was here before pharmaceutical drugs. It was founded by a doctor and a surgeon. His name was Andrew Taylor Still. And the principles of osteopathy is able to heal itself. The rule of artery is supreme. So we need blood flow and we need drainage and we need alignment. And if there's any dysfunction in the body, it causes symptoms and suffering. So it is natural and it just looks for the cause of something in the structure of the body. And we say that the structure creates the function. So if something isn't functioning, it always comes back to a structure that in the body that's not being able to do its normal function or its normal role. I decided to be an osteopath actually when I was 13, very young. So I chose the right exams to study so that I could be an osteopath. So I trained in osteopathy when I was 18 until I was 22. I graduated in 97. So I've been practicing osteopathy for 27 years now, and I love it. I would never do anything different. To be able to put my hands on someone and be able to promote a healing response is miraculous. It's so fulfilling and nourishing for myself to do this work with people. It's a privilege and it's an honor to be able to put my hands on someone and just promote them to be able to feel better from whatever condition it is from head to toe. Osteopathy is about treating all ages. So I treat from 2 days old, 2 days young, I should say, through to those in their 90s, really. So whatever age and whatever condition that you're suffering with, osteopathy generally has an answer for it. Not everything. We realize that there are limitations and restrictions for what we can do, but we can diagnose as well using our hands. And then we have the capability to be able to help the body heal itself. If there are concerns, then we're aware, we are trained medically. So we're able to pick up on things and be able to refer into the medical system when it's necessary to do
so. Many questions. Number one, how did you know at the age of 13 that you want to do this? I don't know what I was doing at the age of 13. Whatever I was doing, I wasn't figuring out what I want to do the rest of my life. So what inspired you to do that at 13?
I would say my mum. So I was brought up in natural therapy. If I had anything wrong with me, my mum would find a remedy, or she would do my feet, I would say, because she does reflexology and she's a healer. So we were raised naturally in natural medicine, and I saw her working from home. I saw everyone happy, joyful, and I thought, I want a career like this. This is great. I can work from home. I can make people feel better. This is wonderful. And I didn't want to go into mainstream medicine because I had been brought up in natural medicine. And there wasn't that much choice. I wanted university. So it was either being a chiropractor or being an osteopath. And I chose osteopathy. Yeah.
How do you guide individuals to shift their beliefs and attitudes to access this inner innate healing potential?
The first thing is just to be open. The biggest thing is to be open to be able to heal yourself. The desire, I think, about having that self-worth that you deserve to be at your optimum and to be at your peak. Every one of us deserves that. And I think just being open to listening to a different way of helping your body be at that peak performance.
Isn't that something that everybody has within them? Nobody wants to suffer. Everybody wants to feel better. So is it really surprising that most people already have that when they come to you? Or do you find that there is more nuances that are missing?
So I would say, yes, everyone does want to get better, but they're not necessarily open to a different way of their body healing itself because they've been used to taking medicine and they haven't been used to taking responsibility. For example, it could be that the person needs to change their sleep habits, their diet. They need to maybe do some brain exercises. They need to go out and do exercise. So when someone presents for osteopathy, it is about following the advice that you've been also given within that consultation. And that isn't necessarily comfortable. So some people will not follow the advice necessarily. Even though they've presented for the appointment, they may not then go through with what the suggestions have been to enable them to get better.
Why do you think that is?
Life gets too busy. They can't really find the time. It's not usually, I don't think, about resources. I think it's more about life just gets in the way, not prioritizing on themselves. A lot of people put other people in front of them and they are last on the list. And I try to encourage them to be the first. So the patient who's in front of me, then they are number one in their own life. So it comes back to when you're on an airplane and you're instructed to put the mask on yourself before that of your child. It doesn't feel right to do that because we would think, no, I'm going to put the mask on my child first, but we can't. We need to put the mask on ourselves first. So it's trying to create the awareness that the person is number one and they need to look after themselves first before they can look after others. And that's really difficult for some people. They don't find that easy at all. And so therefore, they won't necessarily necessarily take the advice given because because their time is spent with other members of their family or perhaps their job, the boss that they're working for. But yeah,
in the entrepreneurial world, this is such a problem, right? And I see this a lot more with female entrepreneurs who have children, who have families, because not only they have to work on building their business, they also have to take care of their children, they also have to take care of their family. And while juggling all these balls, almost always they put themselves last. So if somebody is listening to this and they're struggling with this, what are some things that you tell your patients, practical things that they could do to really put themselves first? Because a lot of them feel like it's not an option for them.
I think it's about creating more space within their life and actually being more productive as well with their time. So sometimes people are not productive because they're too caught up in their mind, they're too caught up in their thoughts. And usually that's a lot of negativity. So if I can help the patient come back to being centered and being mindful, that's a really good place to start. So talking about how they can breathe better and how they can perhaps meditate, how they can use affirmations, declarations. So then they can be more productive with their day, because actually you can free up a lot of time if you're not bogged down by all the negative, disempowering chit chat that happens in the mind.
That's so powerful because you're right. It's the monkey mind that's always all over the place. And we're ruminating over things that have happened. What are some tactical steps to stop this rumination, to stop this negative talk that we have towards ourselves?
The absolutely perfect thing that you could do is to say, I am sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's actually a prayer. It's a prayer of all the religions. So it doesn't matter what religion you're from, because we all would use that type of prayer. It's taken from a book called Zero Limits, Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian prayer. And it's worth reading that. But that prayer is incredible. It creates miracles around the people that say the prayer. And I encourage people to say it hundreds of times a day and night. So go to sleep saying it, wake up in the night saying it, say it through the day, and say it really fast. Because if you say it quick enough, it doesn't allow for the negativity to come into your mind, because you are saying the prayer and the prayer is then doing the work instead of you doing the work. So I would say to people, don't judge the thoughts that are coming into your mind. Let the prayer do the work instead. So try not to judge it. Try not to go into that conversation within your mind, because it's usually and unsupportive. It's unhelpful. And so if you use the prayer, that will help the conversation to either come to a halt or it will drift away and you'll have better thoughts. And also then using declarations or affirmations. This is also a good distraction. So I have one which is taken from the Master Key. This is another good book. And for myself, I use this as well regularly through the day. And it would be, I am happy, healthy, harmonious, powerful, loving, and strong. And I say that on repeat, say the list. And this way, the thoughts don't keep coming back into my mind, any negativity, disempowering thoughts, it stops.
So do you think it's the active saying of the prayer that engages the mind in a certain way that just doesn't allow for our mind to drift away into the negativity? Is that what is happening behind the scenes?
The prayer enables us to reach a higher frequency, and we're all energy and we're all frequency, and we need to be in a higher frequency to be able to be at our peak performance. If we say these words, I am sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you, this takes our body and energy into a higher frequency. And when you're in that state, that's when miracles happen. That's when you start attracting really good thoughts, and then our thoughts create good action. It's about taking us higher into a higher frequency. It's about repentance, forgiveness, love, and gratitude. And if you can live your life in that state, it is beautiful. It's where we all really want to be, but we get bogged down.
When it comes to entrepreneurs, anxiety is something that everyone suffers from. There's imposter syndrome, there is uncertainty of the future, and that affects them in terms of their mood during the day, how they physically feel, sleep at night. So when you are working with your patients to address symptoms holistically, can we work through one of these examples to see how you determine the root cause of someone's suffering, and then what a listener could potentially do to get started with this process of healing?
Yes, absolutely. My work started to change a number of years ago now. And I've started to now treat in the mental health area much more than I have done before. I used to treat conditions mainly of the joints, and my practice now has moved more into the mental health, mental illness. And a lot of patients started presenting with anxiety, depression, and now I treat patients with suicide ideation. And the treatment that I've been applying with patients that have the anxiety, depression, self-harm, addictions, obsessions, I'm able to work with them, and with a couple of treatments, usually 2 to 3 treatments, and their anxiety is reduced or resolved, and they're not self-harming, and they're not taking action towards taking their life. And it is a blessing to be in that situation with someone to create this transformation. And it's the two of us working together. So it's a large part of anxiety comes from around the temporal bone of the head, which is the side of the head. And it's to do with the lymphatic system being dysfunctional. So the lymphatic system is like your lymphatic system in your body, but we have a glymph system, which is just the system around the brain. And it's the waste clearance. So the cerebrospinal fluid is the fluid which bathes the brain, and that makes up the lymphatic system. And it should be flowing a certain rate and rhythm. And if it doesn't flow, then it gets blocked. And the blockages within that give rise to anxiety, low mood, and the suicide ideation. And I, with my hands, can feel that flow of fluid and where it's backing up, or where does it need to help the flow better. So often I find anxiety sits around the side of the head, and often it's there because there has been a trauma to the head in some way. So this could be a blow to the head, but it can also be birth, and that's really difficult if birth has caused a problem to the cranium and to the flow of the fluid, because you are at such a disadvantage then from day one. And a lot of the patients that I've been treating with mental ill health, in fact all of them, have had the feeling of concussion within their head. So their brain is sitting in toxicity. The brain is not being able to process as it should do. It's not being able to flow as it should do. And it just creates then this buildup, which then results in the symptom of the anxiety, the depression, low mood, and unfortunately, the suicide ideation.
You have also emphasized that you help individuals reconnect with their divine blueprint. What does this mean, and why is it helpful?
So the other word that we can use for the cerebrospinal fluid is the Christ oil, or the sacred secretion. So if you're spiritual, you would view it in that way rather than the cerebrospinal fluid. So this is like Christ, or the divine being within you. And if the divine is flowing within you at a certain rate and rhythm, then you are connecting better with the divine. Blockages, unfortunately, within this dynamic of fluid result in then a disconnection, like a separation from your creator. And this is usually what I find with some patients, where they would describe that they feel like they're under demonic attack, and the voices in their head are the voices telling them to hurt themselves. And it's interesting that they describe that as demonic, or they feel like they've been possessed in some way. This is the work I'm doing then with the sacred secretion, the Christ oil.
You also work with AO scan technology and biofrequency healing through music. Can you explain how that works and how it helps people?
Yeah, so some patients can't travel to see me. I do have patients that do fly in to see me from Europe, because I'm in London and I'm in the Midlands. Some patients can't travel that far, so I will help them remotely using AO scan technology, which is biofrequency. It's using quantum physics to be able to send healing frequency remotely. I can either use the person's voice recording, or they don't need to provide their voice. But if they provide their voice recording, then the technology is able to listen to 1,000 frequencies within the spoken words, and it's pulling out 4 notes. 3 notes are producing too much sound, and 1 note isn't producing enough sound, and it creates an imbalance within the body. And we then want the body to be in a balanced state, so the technology creates music to be able to counterbalance the high note or the low note. It's incredible how it works. It's the accuracy of it is amazing. I started to use it first on myself. I didn't believe that it could work either. I didn't understand how it works, but I thought I was willing to try it and see. And I found it was amazing when I started to listen to it. I would be crying because I would feel like I was just felt so elated by listening to this music. And I thought, wow, this is doing something to the chemistry of my body. How's that even possible that I'm crying? Or it was just amazing by listening. And then what would then happen later in my day? Now it's something I listen to every morning. So every morning I record my voice, I have a new scan, and I have new music to listen to. So I've used it with patients that live far away. And again, they try it and then they see that they can reduce their anxiety or they can sleep better, they feel better. Some people's appetite has been improved by it. And I think the biggest things are the sleep and the anxiety from the patients that have used it. And it's wonderful to know that I can reach people without them needing to be in my hands. Because a lot of the work for 27 years I've been working has really involved my hands connecting with someone's body, the energy of that person. And now I find that I can use something remotely that does actually help.
I mean, you have worked with patients across all ages and conditions. What is the most profound transformation that you have witnessed?
The most profound has to be the person that has attempted on their life and now they don't make attempts on their life. This is incredible, absolutely amazing. So I had a young lady, she's 20. So this is a really good example where she had struggled with mental ill health since she was 15, and she had already been in the hospital for 5 months because she was making attempts on her life. And she's only here because the cord that she put around her neck, it snapped. Otherwise, she wouldn't be here. And her parents were so concerned about her because she was under psychiatry, she was medicated, and it wasn't helping. So they had reached the point where nothing was making a difference, and she was attempting on her life again. And they heard me on a podcast, reached out to me, brought her to see me. And 2 treatments later, the voices stopped and she had no intention to take on her life anymore. And now she's at university. She's actually studying. She's left home. And I treated her twice before the changes, 3 times in total. And she's at university. Wow. Yeah, that is incredible, I would say. Yeah, any story that I have, most of those, yeah, and I can share her story because she has allowed me to. There are many people that I treat, but they don't necessarily then allow me to talk about their story because it is so sensitive. Yeah.
No, that's a phenomenal story there. I know that for those who are listening to this in America, osteopathy isn't something that is popular here. Most people don't even know what it is. Transformative healing through music, understanding these frequencies and creating music, like you said, it's also not something that most people know about. Why are these healing modalities not as popular as we want them to be? Because they have enormous power in helping change people's lives.
Yeah, the one main reason, big pharma.
Mm.
Pharmaceutical industry, it's a problem because they control the media, they control everything, and we are a threat. Anybody who's working with the body to promote a healing response is going to be a threat to that industry of medicine because we take people off drugs. We're enabling the person to heal themselves and find their inner strength, their inner courage, power to be able to recover from something, and they don't need the tablets anymore. And so if the truth were out there, then it's going to be a big problem. We are not allowed, or certainly osteopaths are unable to advertise fully what they do. I no longer use the title osteopath, and now I am free and I can advertise myself in a much better way. But if I held my title osteopath, I am only allowed to say that I treat a dozen conditions. I certainly could not say that I treat the brain and I treat brain health and I'm helping people who would be suicidal or depressed or anxious. We're unable to say these things. And so you'll find that is one big reason that you don't then discover this natural method of healing and empowerment. Because Big Pharma, unfortunately, they set these restrictions upon professions and then it limits their scope. My work in 2016 had been censored and had been censored until the year 2021. And so I've been there. I understand what it's like to be censored and to feel like I've got duct tape across my lips and not able to really be my true, authentic self for a number of years. And now I am free of that. I don't have to answer to an authority above me. I only answer now to God. And Wow, that's a much better position to be in. God is my authority, nobody else.
How do your book, Miracle Worker and Mental Clarity, reflect on your approach to empowering individuals to take ownership of their own health?
That is precisely what the books do. Yeah, so they are both self-help books. The latest, Mental Clarity, is daily habits to clear brain fog and improve focus. And the first book is more generalized, but both of them are about explaining health and disease and what actions that you can take to improve your health. Simple things like your sleep habits and your nutrition and exercise and prayer. Very easy actions that people can take, but sometimes just lack the knowledge.
For those listening to this, entrepreneurs are almost always very involved in self development. Tell us something in this book that is different than the regular self development book.
So I would say that would be about honoring the Christ oil. So if you've got a problem within your lymphatic system, you've got let's say you have a mental health illness of some sort, I would encourage you to look at it spiritually, not just physically. So physically would be your sleep routine and your diet, let's say, anti-inflammatory eating plan, avoiding sugar, avoiding alcohol, exercise, drinking water, and sleeping well. But if we look at the spiritual aspect and you want to honor your Christ oil, I would say then this is living a life like the Ten Commandments, or as Jesus would have instructed to live, which would be not to be boastful, not to be prideful, not to be gluttonous, loving your neighbor. And this way, this is about then you honoring your spiritual side. And this helps to clear the system in that way. So I would say prayers and acts of kindness every day, loving people, having compassion, trying to do something, one act every day, just to show kindness to somebody else.
Your life includes many interests like boxing and yoga. How do these practices influence your perspective on health and healing?
So, yeah, exercise is so important just to move your body fully, and high intensity exercise. So high intensity exercise is so good because if we sweat and we perspire, then we can clear a lot of toxins that we have in our body, including the brain. So high intensity exercise and stretching the body. So you've got mobility in all of the joints because again, we need circulation and we need drainage for the body to be at optimum peak performance. So the yoga for me and the boxing are that they tick those boxes. So stretching my body the way I do in yoga, and also then the high intensity with the boxing, because that's when I would perspire more. So it's short bursts of really hard exercise in comparison then to the yoga, which is then very relaxing, very hard, but giving your body such an amazing stretch. And I use the prayer at the same time with yoga. So I'd be saying that I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Or I would just repeat the words, thank you, thank you. Now, I don't do that when I'm boxing. It's too high, it's too intense for me to be doing that. But during the yoga, it gives me chance because it's more about being still, more about connecting with the body, more about the breath. Yoga is very good for the breath work.
What message would you like to leave with our listeners who are struggling to find light in their darkest moments?
The prayer, it comes back again to connecting with that prayer, simply saying the 4 sentences, I am sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you, and repeating those words. It does bring miracles. Miracles have happened in the last 10 years for me regularly. Every day, every half an hour of the day is a miracle happening with the work that I'm doing. And I am using that prayer hundreds, thousands of times in a day. So I have witnessed it, and I would encourage you to try it. A lot of the patients that I treat also practice the prayer, and they tell me how good it is. It does work.
Michelle, the fact that you have been wanting to do this since you were 13 years old, you actively started pursuing it when you were 18 years old, you have dedicated more than a quarter of a century on this practice and making yourself better, not just for the purposes of healing yourself and your family, but for the purposes of healing random strangers who come to you with pain and suffering. It speaks deeply about the type of character you have. It speaks deeply about the mission you are on because you see that as your role that God has given you. So it's been an honor and a privilege getting to know you a little bit, understanding the work you do and how you're helping others. Any last words for our audience members?
Thank you so much, Mark. I have gifts that I can offer your listeners. I have a free gift, which is a video training on how you could sit at your workstation, so not using your laptop. And if you do use a laptop, on how to set it up correctly. So one of the gifts is a video of setting your workplace. And then the other gift is a free PDF copy of the book, Mental Clarity. So I'd like to offer those two gifts. And also, I'm going to El Salvador first time. I'm coming to El Salvador in December, and I would really like to work with any of the children in any orphanage in El Salvador. So if there's anybody listening who could help me be able to approach one of the orphanages so that I can bring my gift to them and start a healing process when I'm there, that would be really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been a pleasure getting to meet you. Thank you for being on the show, and I hope we talk soon again.
Thank you so much.